The Silent Hill series is one of the most beloved franchises by gamers, but the series has had many ups and downs, and for around about the last decade, the series has been in a hibernation. But last year marked the return of the series with the incredible remake of Silent Hill 2, a game that had me pretty worried straight from the get-go due to some very iffy footage. But the final product was truly something special, a game that respected the original and also created something new and fresh, and very much like the Resident Evil 2 remake, it stands shoulder to shoulder with its original in terms of quality and gameplay. So the Silent Hill train is running again, and just under a year later we've received the next entry in the series, which is actually the first entirely new entry for around about 13 years, in Silent Hill F. The next part of Konami's campaign to bring back the classic horror series into the limelight. Does it work out? Let's find out. Silent Hill F is quite bold straight from the get-go with its choice of setting, with it now being set in 1960s Japan instead of the fictional main setting that is featured in many other games, and it works great. I'm actually quite surprised that it took them so long to set one in Japan, as everything just feels so right. From every environment you go through, it just gets that Silent Hill feeling on the money, as well as mixing up some traditional J-horror stuff as well. The story follows a young woman called Hinako who has a bit of a troubled family life, having issues with her parents, missing her sister who has moved away, and unfortunately for her, a meeting with her friends ends in a blanket of mysterious fog, spider lilies popping up everywhere, and some horrific monsters. What is going on here? Well, it's up to Hinako to find out. The story here is actually really interesting. It's so vague at times that you wonder what is actually going on, but as you play through the game and piece together things, the narrative is great with some pretty shocking moments. Unfortunately, the ending is quite abrupt, but it is like that on purpose, as there's multiple different endings. With each playthrough you learn more and more about the story. It's an interesting approach, and I do like where the story went. The gameplay is mixed up into a few different types. You have your exploration, puzzles, and combat. First up, I'll talk about the exploration, and it's pretty much what you can expect. The game's area is pretty reasonably sized, while still focusing mostly on a linear path. There are plenty of excuses to go off the beaten path to find collectibles, and to look at the beautiful world the developers have made. As for the puzzles, it wouldn't be a Silent Hill game if there wasn't any puzzles, and this one delivers some fiendishly clever and difficult puzzles that will certainly get you thinking. They come up fairly regularly throughout the adventure, so that's nice to see that there's a good balance of gameplay types here. One thing I like is how, dependent on which difficulty setting you have on, you have different answers, so it keeps the experience fresh if you replay the game on a harder or easier difficulty. Now on to arguably the main gameplay style, and it's the combat. One thing that surprised me was how combat heavy Silent Hill F is. Of course you can avoid enemies in some situations if you wish, but you're put in a lot of combat situations, and has been comparisons to the Dark Souls games with how the combat is approached, and yeah, I can get that, as you have many of the same fundamentals like a stamina bar, melee weapons, and dodging and parrying, so you could say it is inspired by that series, but it isn't as in-depth as those games at all. That being said, the combat itself is really fun and occasionally quite challenging, especially the boss fights, which I won't spoil, but I will say that they are fantastically designed and a blast to fight against. It's just a shame that there isn't much standard enemy variety here, as there's only like 4 standard enemies that'll pop out throughout the whole adventure. They look creepy, don't get me wrong, but I wish there was a greater variety. Also, the game's camera and lock-on can be a bit of a pain in tight areas, leading to a couple of frustrating encounters, as the camera really does seem to have a mind of its own sometimes. On to the game's length now, and to reach the game's credits, it took me a good 10 to 11 hours to reach the ending, which is actually pretty respectable and is actually quite nice to have a game with a manageable length for once. But Silent Hill F is begging to be replayed, as its ending does feel quite vague and abrupt. But subsequent playthroughs will reveal more and more of the story thanks to New Game Plus, and that's a pretty cool idea. Obviously, it would have been nice to get the whole story there and then on the first playthrough, but the game is more than entertaining enough to play through again, especially with all the knowledge of the game of your prior playthrough. On the technical side of things, Silent Hill F at first glance is a looker. The Japanese setting is a perfect fit for Silent Hill and the game can look gorgeous at times. Unfortunately, the frame rate can be a bit choppy, dropping frames in heated combat situations, which can be a pain. It also looks like there might be some dynamic resolution in play here, and occasionally the image can look a little bit soft. But overall, it's one of the better performing Unreal 5 engine games. I just wish the game would perform a little bit better, and that can be said for most Unreal Engine 5 games. A quick little note about the game's soundtrack, and Silent Hill games are known for their atmospheric and creepy soundtracks, and Silent Hill F is no different, featuring a brilliant collection of beautifully made tracks, which also includes work from Akira Yamaoka, who is a series regular for the soundtrack, and it's always important and great to see him involved, as a Silent Hill game wouldn't feel right without him. Conclusion time now, and for the first completely new entry in well over a decade, Silent Hill F is a triumph, completely delivering an unnerving and creepy game with an intriguing narrative, great characters, fun combat and plenty of replayability. Whilst the performance can leave a lot to be desired and the camera can be a bit of a pain, Silent Hill F offers a brilliant and bright new future for Konami's beloved horror series, and up there as one of the best horror games of the decade, which is something I'm very happy to say. So with that, I'm giving Silent Hill F an 8.5 out of 10 with the title of great, and as always, thanks ever so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. You stay safe, take care, and I'll see you all on the next video. Take care, bye.